And joining us now on the Comcast Business Hotline, where every day in business is a big day. Let Comcast Business help you move forward with what's next. The tremendous NFL insider from ESPN, and of course, has both Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe on his fantasy basketball teams as well. So I know he's still happy as of this morning. That is the great Adam Schefter. Shefty, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. We're looking for a big game from our guys tonight. Big game tonight. Let's go.
Our guys. I love that. Shefty, so speaking of big games, Jaelan Phillips has had 2 big games in his 2 weeks with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm curious, when you see Jaelan Phillips play the way that he has in 2 games with the Eagles, do teams around the league start going, maybe we should have been in on that guy before the trade deadline, before the Eagles got him?
There were a lot of teams on him. That's the whole thing. There were a lot of teams that had interest in him, teams that were in playoff contention, that had a need for a pass rusher. There were a number of teams that the Dolphins spoke with about a trade. The Eagles really were intent upon getting him and figuring out a way to get it done, and in the end, they offered up more than anybody else and got the trade done. I think they were on him early. Like, there are some teams that trade for players. It just kind of comes together in a hurry and quickly. But with the Eagles, they have been tracking him, following him, on him for weeks before they could get the trade done. And obviously you see the difference that he makes, and it helps both sides because they're benefiting from it right now. He's in a contract year. He knows how much money's at stake for him if he goes out and plays well. So it's worked out great so far for both sides.
Adam, when you say other teams weren't willing to, give up what the Eagles gave up, and in our minds, when we look at it, it doesn't look like they gave up a ton to go get a player that's making such of an impact. Are the Eagles just a team that really looks at draft picks and everything like that far differently, sort of like Les Snead does out in L.A.?
I wouldn't say that. I just would say that they're aggressive when they need to. Plus, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they came into the season with 13 picks in the 2026 draft. So when you have 13 picks, believe me, you're not looking to squander any, but it certainly gives you a little bit more flexibility. It makes you a little bit more aggressive, whereas other teams might have been coming in on a 4 on Jaelan Phillips or flopping picks. The Eagles can come in and say, hey, we'll give you a 3. Okay, that here's a straight 3. And for a team like the Dolphins that's rebuilding, we could use a 3. Fine, so there's the makings of a deal. But, again, I just think that when you have 13 picks on a roster where 13 picks can't make the roster, they just can't do it because there's already enough depth. It allows you to be a little bit more aggressive in certain things, right? Like, again, it doesn't always work out, but they were aggressive on Jahan Dotson. He's made some plays. You could say, well, maybe he's not worth the value. Okay, fine. But they're going to keep swinging over and over. And sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes it won't work as much. That's the way it goes.
Adam Schefter joining us here on the Comcast Business Hotline. Schefter, the Eagles play the Cowboys on Sunday. Eagles have a chance to kind of end the season for Dallas. But Dallas, we know that the offense is good. What is the league saying about their defense since the trade deadline? Because you acquired Logan Wilson. They acquired Quinnen Williams. They also got Overshown back from injury. Is this a different-looking Cowboys defense since the trade deadline?
Well, and they also activated Winfrey yesterday off of injured reserve. So you're talking about 4 different players that stepped in on a defense that was not very good. Now, I don't know how much better the defense is. Obviously, it's going to be improved with all those players and that level of talent. But they were playing the Raiders Monday night. It's tough to tell you, boy, their defense now matches up to the Eagles. I don't think that. But I do think it's improved. And the game is in Dallas, right?
The game is in Dallas.
Yeah, they're a more dangerous team in Dallas. That team plays better. If you look at their numbers on offense in particular, they average about a touchdown more per game at home. They average about 75 more yards per game at home. They're just a better home team. It makes it a tougher game. So I would imagine Philly will get an A game from the Cowboys with the Cowboys season on the line, with them being at home, with them coming off an emotional Monday night win. Dallas's issue, it just hasn't been able to maintain the type of consistency that a true playoff contender needs to make it to the postseason.
When you look at now that things have shaped up, you see Dallas, you see the Eagles, taking care of Detroit and Green Bay in a matter of 6 days. They've clearly set themselves up, and they've already beaten the Rams, and they've already, set themselves up as the best. Is the rest of the NFC, do you think there's a couple teams that are right there on their same tier? One team? Honestly, through 10 games, where do you look at it?
I think that the Rams are right there with them. And, I think the Rams felt like they took it to Philadelphia physically earlier in the year, and the game just didn't go their way. I think that if, we're looking at it today, November 19th, right? I think the Rams are on their level. I think that even though they beat the Lions, maybe the Bucks and the Seahawks are a notch below, but in one game, who knows? I just think the NFC is a pretty loaded conference with a lot of good teams. And Philadelphia would be near the top of the list along with the Rams. But I think there's some teams in that conference that are going to be heard from.
All right, Schefter, I want to stay in division here, a team that's not a top team in the conference, the New York Giants. I asked John Kincade, Connor Thomas this question yesterday, as well as Amy Fadul, who works for NBC Sports Philadelphia, as well as 97.5 The Fanatic. Am I being no fun police when I see Cam Scatterbo in his boot getting into a fake altercation at the WWE event the other day?
Yeah.
Would the New York Giants ownership and team management say, hey, Cam, you're recovering from a pretty serious injury. Can you tone it down a bit?
Cam Scatterbo tweeted yesterday, if you don't have anything to say about me, don't say anything nice. Now, I have nothing mean to say. All I'm saying is, I think that's not what I would do, but that's me. I handle things a little differently. And I think that if the Giants front office and coaching staff is being honest, I don't think that they probably were particularly pleased to see that. So, when a guy's in a walking boot with the injury that he has, I got no problem with him going to the event. I got no problem with him being there and watching it. When you start to see that he's involved in whatever he was involved in, and there's movement and pushing and shoving and whatever, I don't know. Maybe it's nothing. Probably is nothing. Chances are it's nothing. But if it were me, I'm not doing that. That's me. He's Cam Scatterbo, and I'm not.
I notice I watch NFL Live all the time, one of my favorite shows, DVR it every day. I notice you've never overslept for a show where they've gone, where's Adam? He's not there. But Abdul Carter, we're now seeing stuff from the New York media, too, a guy who everybody was wanting to get a hold of early on in this draft. There seems to have been a lot of issues with him off the field and on the field.
Well, I'll say this. He called me yesterday, and I can tell you this, that he was very adamant and vehement that he did not sleep through that meeting.
Then what happened then?
Well, this is what he said happened. This is his version, and obviously somebody from the Giants has their version. Somebody from the Giants, because it came out in the reports that he was asleep during the meeting. Okay? And maybe he was. Obviously somebody thought that. I'm just telling you what he told me, and you believe what you want. He called me and he said, I was never sleeping. There was a head coaching change. I had been getting treatment at a certain time all season long. They changed the workout or the walk-through practice schedule. I made a mistake. I didn't realize the time was changed. It was an honest mistake. That's on me. I own up to that. But I was not asleep. That's what he told me.
Okay, but there are also reports that he's been late for other meetings. I'm seeing from the New York Post and others that he'd been late for other things.
That did not come up in my conversation with him. I can't speak to that, but if there are reports coming out, I would imagine usually they're true.
All
right. Lastly, Schefter, will the league have to speak to, at the beginning of every season, they always talk about things, the emphasis, penalties, and things they're going to try to get out of the game. Do we really have to spend
Yeah.
time on not spitting on human beings? Because we had it here in week 1 with Jalen Carter. Now Jamar Chase is suspended for it.
Well, I think the league has spent time on it, but not directly on spitting, because sportsmanship was a point of emphasis during the off season. You know, I don't know that you always have to spell out when we're talking about how important sportsmanship is, that you can't spit on somebody. Okay, like. Do you want me to say, like, you can't pick your nose and wipe it on somebody too? Like, what else do you want to say?
They better bring that up, by the way. They better spell that out. Because that's the only thing that's next.
If they're doing spitting, they might as well do that as well. Shefty, listen, man, we appreciate the time as always. I think the Sixers, I think Maxi's a big game today. It'll help your fantasy team out.
You can talk directly to Maxi, too, because we are the home of the Sixers. So if you want to get him inspired for tonight's game.
Listen, I need him inspired for him and VJ inspired for tonight, and I need them inspired always. I need them to bring it. You know, VJ, they both had a good game the other night. That was good. Last week was a little flat for them. Monday night was excellent, and we always count on excellence. You know, we count on a couple of things. We count on excellence from our Sixers guys. And we count on NFL players not spitting and picking their nose and wiping it on an opponent.
Those are 2 good rules of thumb to go about your daily days. All right, Shefty, we appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Adam.
Have a great day, guys.